Sports card price fluctuations are spicy right now. It's that time of year when volatility is the name of the game. So place your bets, get it right, and the payday can be big. But if you get it wrong, you might find yourself on the wrong side of a massive loss. Today I'm showcasing the notable names from basketball, baseball, and hockey. Let's data dive. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Data Dive powered by Market Movers. My name is Tyler Nethercott, better known as Teapot, and this week I'm just going to get right into it. 2 playoff sports, one more a quarter of the way into the season, and price trends are all over the place. As always, this video is brought to you by Market Movers. Visit marketmoversapp.com and use promo code DIVE, D-I-V-E, when you check out, and you'll get 14 days completely free to try out Market Movers, and then 20% off for life as long as you're subscribed. Now let's get into the data. All right, so I'm gonna start with basketball, then we'll do baseball and hockey, and I'm gonna kind of go from the hot to the cold, or at least to the guys who should be hot, and then the guys who should be cold. I'm starting out with the Timberwolves here. I've got the Timberwolves notable players. They obviously came from behind, won the first 2 games, then lost 3 straight to the Nuggets. They were suddenly underdogs to win that series. They won decisively in Game 7 and pulled out the huge 20-point comeback in Game 7. Biggest comeback in history in a Game 7 like that, I believe, or in a playoff series, who knows. It was impressive. I don't know what was more impressive, the comeback or if Denver kind of choked it away, but either way, we're seeing Anthony Edwards' prices now starting to head back up in the other direction. So we obviously knew we had this meteoric rise here, then he started to dip. They went down 2-3 in that series, and all of a sudden, they win the series. He's rising back up. Personally, I think the Wolves are going to win versus the Mavs. It could go either way. I'm kind of rooting for the team to come out of the West to win the finals in this particular case. That's just my personal preference, but I also think from a hobby perspective that Luka or Anthony Edwards winning would be more notable than Tatum or Halliburton winning. Maybe you disagree with me. If so, let me know down in the comments, but we're seeing some life here for Anthony Edwards. I'm looking over just the last 30 days, basically since the playoffs started. He's up 112%. At his highest point, he was up significantly more than that. He was up to $379. And I'm, of course, looking at sort of base PSA 10 type cards, commodity cards. In some cases, like with Jaden McDaniels, I'm looking at a PSA 9. Why? Because he just doesn't have a lot of graded cards in general, and the gem rate was really low in that 2020 year set for PSA 10s out of Prism. Rudy Gobert, notably, down. Not a ton of sales. He doesn't have a ton of notable rookie cards, to be honest. He does not have a Prism rookie card out of 2013 Prism. So I went with the select PSA 10, Pop 70, down 27%. You know, Gobert's an important piece of that team, but I definitely don't think he's ever going to get a ton of attention to be a focal point. Towns played really well. I saw a stat at one point. I don't remember if it was in Game 6 or Game 7 against the Nuggets, but they were saying that he was holding Joker under like 40% shooting from the field, which like nobody's done when Towns guarded him. So maybe a little bit of a sneaky good defender from Towns' part. We know that the Timberwolves in general, great defensive team, the best in the NBA. So I think they have a really strong chance. They've got to control Luka, let the rest of the team or make the rest of the team try to beat you. We'll see what happens, but I'm excited to watch that series in the Western Conference Finals. So speaking of the Nuggets, let's jump over. Same thing, 30-day view here, and I'm looking at price changes by percentage because this puts everything on equal footing. You'll notice if I go to the price, well, you're going to see that Jokic card at the top. These look like they're not even moving, so that's a nice aspect of Market Movers to compare apples to apples, same time frame, and you can see Jamal Murray crashing down. We talked about him going into the playoffs. We said that Jamal Murray can show up in a big-time way, and he did early in the playoffs and in some of those games, even against the Wolves, but then he just started to fall off. So he's actually down 55% from where he started during that period. He had run up to $90 on his PSA 10 Prism. Fickle hobby we are. Now down to $36, so huge collapse on that particular card. Jokic pretty much flat right now. I'll be really interested to see what happens to his cards in the coming month or so. I like to look at this 30-day period, and I'll show you why a few more players from now to wait for buying opportunities. Give it about 30 days until these players get bounced out of the playoffs if you're interested in scooping their cards at a discount and go that route. We got Aaron Gordon down 25% and Michael Porter Jr. down 12%, who took ownership for that loss. He said he let his team down in that Game 7. All right, switching gears back to the winning team. It's pretty much Luka and Kyrie, though Derek Lively has been a really nice surprise, D-Live as they call him, and he's actually up 40% on his Prism Silver PSA 10. I tried to pick cards that were over like $20, you know, some of the more notable ones, hence the silver here. His Prism-based stuff is still pretty low, which maybe you want to scoop it if you believe in him long term. Really interesting, Kyrie up 51%, and Luka basically flat, down 1%. Luka's carrying this team, and Luka's basically flat. So let me know, what do you think? If Luka actually makes it to the finals, I have to imagine his cards are going to go up in price. I have to imagine they're going to go up in price. But we'll see ultimately what happens with Luka and the Mavs. Like I said, I actually thought the Thunder were going to beat them. The Mavs surprised me. They pulled through that series. Maybe they'll surprise us again. It would certainly be good for the hobby either way to have Anthony Edwards or Luka in the finals. The Thunder got bounced. So far, last 30 days, Shea down 8%, Chet Holmgren down 6%, Jalen Williams down 6%. Jalen Williams had a couple pretty bad games at the end of that series. He was kind of a disappointment. I like him still as a player with upside. I talked about him in a video a few weeks ago on how to identify NBA players with big potential. The big question mark for me is, can Jalen Williams establish himself as the number 2 on the Thunder, or is that clearly going to be Chet for the foreseeable future, barring any big trades or moves that the Thunder might do? It's clearly Shea number 1. I think you have to kind of hold the number 2 place to be a player who's going to hold significant value. So it's kind of between these guys. And I know Chet's got a lot of buzz, obviously, behind him. So maybe it's Chet, and maybe Jalen Williams is a bad buy long term. Maybe he caps out at 20, 22 points a game and can't really get over that hump as a third option on that Thunder team. Okay, Pascal Siakam, Spicy P, you guys know I like him. In my opinion, he might be the most underrated player in the NBA. I think he actually probably is the most underrated and underappreciated player in the NBA. When he was traded and he went to the Pacers, I thought that was a big deal. He's great in transition. He does a little bit of everything. I think he's just a fantastic overall player. And he played really well in the last series, and his card prices have been rewarded by being down 30% since the beginning of the playoffs. So go figure that one out. Tyrese Halliburton, he did throw the ball, he didn't throw the ball away. He was wide open on that inbounds play with Nembhard, and Nembhard was looking in the corner, and then Siakam, for some reason, just stopped running, let Brown close the gap. Nembhard then decides to throw the ball. Game 1, catastrophe. The Pacers blew it, and that might cost them the series, honestly. They needed to win that game. Halliburton up big time. He's up 62%, and we've even seen that in the last 7 days, it looks like. If we hit that, you can see Halliburton up 46% in just the last 7 days. So pulling through that series, getting past the Knicks. It was Brunson on the rise. Now it's Halliburton. And speaking of Brunson, what a sad, fitting, apropos ending to the season for the Knicks, who just went one injury to the next injury to the next injury to the next injury. Josh Hart was trying to grit and play every minute of every game to stay on the field to help, or stay on the court to help them compete. And Josh Hart, of these 3 guys, being my guy Donte DiVincenzo, Josh Hart, and Jalen Brunson, actually, if we look over the last 60 days, he suddenly got put in the spotlight. People loved his grit. They loved that he wanted to be out there and competing. And his card, his Prism Silver PSA 10, Pop 158, went up 681%. It went up to $150. That card first sold at $19 for a PSA 10 back in April. So that is what playoff success and winning does for a player. Jalen Brunson's still up 76% over the last 60 days. But if we shift to the last 7 days, let's take a look and kind of see what's going on. Well, Dante's up a little bit. And I'm going to talk, just as an aside right now, about Donte DiVincenzo, because I want, if you're going to write one thing in the comment, let me know if you think I'm crazy. I have watched a lot of Donte DiVincenzo. I watched him in college absolutely cook the Michigan Wolverines in the NCAA championship in the first half. I think he had like 19 points in the first half of that game. And I liked him ever since then. If you can tell, I'm a Michigan State Notre Dame fan, not a Michigan fan. And I've liked him in the NBA. I liked him on the Bucks. I liked him on the Warriors. There's a reason he gets thrown into the starting lineup when players get injured, and there's a reason why I think he will be staying in the starting lineup, or in the very least, a really strong Six-Man of the Year contender year over year. He is a really good, tenacious defender. He's a fantastic off-the-ball defender. He's always got his hand up. He's closing gaps. He closes out. I really like his game. In the second half of this year, he really turned it on, and for 3 years, I've been saying that I thought his kind of potential was in the mode and model of Klay Thompson. And so I was looking at their aged 27 seasons. Now you might look at this and go, well, Klay was at 20, Donte was at 16. But if we saw what he just did in that last series, and he dropped 39 in that final game, trying to help will them over the finish line, even though they got completely blown out because the Pacers couldn't miss in that final game. Donte can shoot. He can shoot the 3-ball. You can see his effective field goal percentage was essentially the same as Klay Thompson's. 3-point percentage later in the season was higher than 40%, but that's a fantastic 3-point shooting percentage. And like I said, he's really good in my opinion. So I like him. I think the Knicks need to lock him up to a long-term deal. We saw Grayson Allen get a big deal. I think Donte DiVincenzo deserves a similar one, and I like his upside. So you let me know down in the comments. Am I crazy for that? I've got a little Donte DiVincenzo PC going. I think he's a fantastic player. All right, let's talk Celtics. This one's surprising to me. So Tatum is obviously the guy for the Celtics. He's the one. Jaylen Brown's the two. Batman and Robin. And Jason Tatum is down 7% over the last 30 days. They're the favorites to win the NBA championship now, and he's down 7%. Jaylen Brown up 13%. I just feel like people aren't particularly excited about the Celtics right now, aside from Celtics fans. They had a really easy path. They played the Heat without Jimmy Butler. They played the Sixers some games without Joel Embiid. And now they basically get to a Pacers team that has just had to grind through multiple games, a 7-game series that was very, very hard fought against the Knicks. And then they choke away that game one. I think the Celtics are going to make it to the finals. I think it's going to be Celtics-Wolves, and then we'll see. I actually like the Wolves' chances in that series, potentially. Let's shift gears here to the Cavs, and we've got Donovan Mitchell. Last 30 days, he's up 44%. Be very interesting to see what the Cavs do in the offseason with Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland, who's down 24% over the last 30 days. He's already started to come down. Now, Mitchell, we'll see. Interesting to see this sale here at $250 after they were bounced. You never know. Sometimes there's some funny business on eBay that can happen with that type of stuff. I imagine the next sale of this Mobley, and I did a PSA 9 because that 2020 and 2021 Prism years, really bad gem rates. So the PSA 10s, there's not a lot of them. They're not transacting often. This is only $25, but I think it will fall off and come back down to where it was, closer to maybe $10 to $15 for Mobley now that they're out of the playoffs. Okay, and last but not least, this is kind of that 30-day idea that I was talking about. Here's your 30-day view for Giannis, who unfortunately could not suit up to play in that series against the Pacers. And he's down. He's down 9%, which may not sound like a significant amount of money, but it's Giannis, and I think he's going to sustain price a little bit better, but you can see it sort of leveling out now. You did see a little bit of a bump here. I think that 30-day time frame after players are kind of bumped out of the playoffs, let it run a little bit, and then there might be buying opportunities to sort of hit the floor on those players, especially while other things are going on in sports. Okay, let's shift over to baseball, like I said. And this is going to be fewer charts, but more players on the charts, so we'll talk through them. I'm looking at some of the MVP favorites right now. So here's the Dodgers, right? We had Ohtani, who won in the AL last year. We had Betts and Freeman, who were the second and third place finishers in the NL last year, with Acuña being first. And Ohtani, even though he is now, I think, basically tied with Mookie Betts for the NL MVP, or very close in Vegas odds, he's down 16%, 22% over the last 90 days, whereas Mookie is up. And Freddie Freeman, who's been, he's been okay, but he's not an MVP front runner right now. He's actually up a little bit, up 4%. So we shift that to the 30-day view. Let's kind of see what their stats look like. And sort of leveling out for Ohtani. So I think there was some hype and some different things still carrying over. His prices really never dipped significantly, at least going into the season. After that, he signed with the Dodgers. There was some kind of like fear around the whole betting stuff with Ippei. He's been cleared of that. Mookie actually starting to slow down in his price appreciation, whereas here's Freddie kind of coming up the rear, up 30% actually over the last 30 days. So the Dodgers are stacked. They're obviously one of the front-runner teams in the NL and frankly in all of MLB for the World Series. So we'll see between, I would say, the Dodgers. You got the Phillies kind of running away with the division right now. The Braves are floundering a little bit. And speaking of the Braves, Acuña, he's down big time, and so is Matt Olson, and so is the two-time World Series MVP Corey Seager. So these guys are all MVP candidates going into the season, and not looking like MVP caliber players at all. Acuña seems to, I don't know, there's just something off. I keep talking about it with my Spitballing Cards guys. It's like there's something a little bit off with him. He looks kind of sad. He looks kind of like depressed, like he's a little bit lost up at the plate right now. He's not seeing the ball well. He's not tracking the ball well necessarily in the outfield. He dropped a wide open catch the other day. We're all rooting for Acuña. I've got his Topps Gold here in a PSA 10 and PSA 9, both down 38 and 32%. And I'm going to be honest, I'm kicking myself on this one, on this particular card, because I would have bid on this card at $279. And in fact, I had it open. And as this happened so many times, something happened, some distraction, some squirrel brain moment for Teapot that I lost track of it, and it ended before I had a chance to put my snipe in at the last second. If you look at this card over the last 365 days, that was the low sale right there. So you miss out. You try to buy at the low point, and I'm even going to go back. Let's go back like 2 years and take a look at that card. So I'm going to go back to like May of 2022. That's pretty much right in line. 279. There was a low sale at 266. So I'm kicking myself on that one. That would have been a really nice card. I'm actually trying to find a graded Acuña card to put in a little frame in my office. I need a graded PSA card, so that would have been a great candidate. It's a really nice card. I missed out on it. Okay, let's go over to some guys who are absolutely taking the lid off the ball this year. And strong MVP candidates. Their teams are having success. We've got Juan Soto, who over the last 90 days is still up 13%. He's cooled off on his prices a little bit. Bobby Witt Jr. actually down 23% on this card. He's having a fantastic start to the season. Gunnar Henderson up 24% on this Bowman Draft Chrome Refractor PSA 10. He's my dark horse right now. So you got Judge and Soto. So we see Judge here next. He's down 27%, but he's starting to turn it on lately. So I think his prices will start going up a little bit more. He's been really hot lately. Soto and Judge, and the Yankees kind of out in front with that division. But do they take votes from each other? That's a big question. You know, if they're on the same team, we had the situation last year where you had Freeman and Betts, and then you had Acuña, who was the clear, I think should have been the clear winner of the MVP last year, especially late in the season. But do they poach votes, MVP votes from each other? And does a guy like Gunnar Henderson, who's actually got a higher WAR rate now in the season than both Soto and Judge, does he kind of come out in front, especially if the Orioles go on a run and end up taking that division? I think he's a little bit of a sneaky sleeper play. I think he's in third or fourth in MVP odds. And Kyle Tucker's another one. The Astros are like, I don't know, last I looked, they were 8-2. They might be 7-3 now in their last 10, but they've actually been winning games. They're closing the gap on that division and starting to get closer to 500. All of a sudden, they look like they can play. Kyle Tucker's having a fantastic season. And at least this base Sapphire is actually getting recognition. It's up 44%. Bryce Harper up 37% on this Topps Chrome PSA 10. And then let's look over the last 30 days. Actually, I'm going to look at the last 14 days and see what's kind of going on. Like I said, you can see Judge up 10%, Tucker up 28%, Harper up 21%. All these guys have been turning it on lately. Their teams are playing well, all of them getting attention on their cards. But baseball's a long season, so keep an eye on that. And then let's look at some of the guys who should be cold, and for the most part are. J-Rod has been abysmal, and he is historically a slow starter to the season, so can he turn it on? That was the thing with the knock with Soto for so many years, was that he was a slow starter and he'd get hot in July and August, especially August into September. J-Rod not looking very good right now at all, down 53%. We've got Francisco Lindor also having a really bad season, but somehow up 13%. This recent sale, I don't know, seems kind of sketch. It's a pretty low pop card. He doesn't have a ton of rookies, so that might be part of it. Bo Bichette, Corbin Carroll, Vlad Guerrero Jr. all down big time, 51%, 63%, 47%. All these guys need to figure out how to get it turned back on for their team's sake, for the hobby's sake. So that's baseball. That's kind of a picture of where some of these notable names are right now. Last up, we'll do hockey. And I'm going to look at some stats here. You guys know I like hockey. I like playoff hockey. I watch it when I can, but I don't follow it as closely. I don't know as many of the athletes by name, the players by name. The Oilers, these are your skating stats for the postseason so far. And look at the Oilers at 131 points, 3.83 goals per game. Second to the Avalanche, who are now knocked out, who had 111 points. But what this tells me is the Oilers move the puck around really well. They move it around. As you know, you can get an assist. You can get a primary or secondary assist. The puck's moving all over the place. So good puck movement leads to many assists and higher scoring for the Oilers. And we know that Connor McDavid's a big part of that. So if we look at this, we've got Leon Draisaitl, Connor McDavid, Evan Bouchard, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. These four guys, all top four in points in the playoffs so far. And they've played 12 games, so game certainly factors into how many points you get. But they're all at the top four, which is really interesting. You've got Cale Makar, like I said, who's knocked out now. Zibanejad, we've got Trocheck, we've got Nathan McKinnon, Rantanen, some of these other guys. So those are sort of your stat leaders in scoring. And then just in case you need a little preview of who's left, I don't remember the last time that we got into the conference finals and you had a combined seed score of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 total points. You got a 1, 1, 1, and a 2. Hockey's wild. Almost every year you have a team. Sometimes you even get like a super low seeded team, you know, that makes it all the way. So that's kind of been interesting to see. But anyway, yeah, it's sort of some of the favorites kind of making it, pushing through. The Oilers came back in this series, and the Stars are looking really good. So I think there's going to be these are going to be really intense conference finals. Even if you're not into hockey, I'd encourage you to go check it out and watch some of the games. They're very intense, constant action, constant motion. Even though the scores aren't always super high, it's nonstop shots, which makes it a ton of suspense. So let's look at some of the guys who should be trending upward. And I'm looking over the last 30 days. Draisaitl up just 4%. Connor McDavid actually down 12%. So here's McDavid and the Oilers pushing into the conference finals. And maybe people don't think that they're going to beat the Dallas Stars. Wyatt Johnson, on the other hand, his cards, we've had him in the top 5. He's up to $250 on his Young Guns base PSA 10, up 128%. Jason Robertson's a familiar name. He's had hot moments in the last year. He especially kind of made a name for himself. He's up 12%. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins actually down 36% in spite of having all those points. And Zach Hyman up 7%. Zach Hyman's been scoring a lot of goals in particular in these playoffs. Over to the other conference, we've got Vincent Trocheck. He's up. He's actually flat. Zibanejad, he's up 44%. Lafreniere kind of flat. Still waiting to see if that guy's going to ever kind of take the next step and live up to the hype that he had when he was a rookie back in 2020. We've got Matthew Tkachuk. He's a familiar face. He's made deep playoff runs in the past. He's up 8%. We got Alexander Barkov up 18% and Igor Shesterkin, who was in this week's top 5, up 40%. And then let's shift over and look at some of the guys who are recently bounced. We've got Cale Makar down 4%, Pasternak down 23%, Nathan McKinnon down 15%, Mikko Rantanen down 15%, and Brock Besser, who's actually still up 72%. He's a hot name too. He's a guy who was popular over the last year who saw some big price increases. So what surprises you, if anything, from this list? Any of the cold guys or players recently bounced from the playoffs on your target list in the coming weeks? Let me know down in the comments, and let me know who you think is gonna who's gonna win the championships. Hockey, basketball, whatever your jam is. Baseball, even if you've got a prediction there. And also do me a huge favor, like this video, make sure to subscribe and share it with a friend. Thanks so much for watching. Until next time, happy investing, keep on collecting, make sure to have fun. I gotta go see what the ruckus is out here.